Yes, basically when we look at Africa, Africa is divided into a network. And this network of routes or corridors is further, as we say, decomposed into 74 links. Now these 74 links have been reduced to 6 most viable ones. So now we have this map of Africa, which is into 6 regions. A region like the eastern region, we have the Mombasa-Nairobi-Kampala as one of the links that is most viable to accelerate, meaning to take it further so that we can have accelerated integration. You have also the Durban-Pretoria-Gaborone as another accelerated link. You have also the Abidjan-Ouagadougou as another accelerated link. So we begin to see that these links will reinforce the integration of their regions, so that what we envisage by 2023, the first phase of Agenda 2063 will happen. And this is why we are looking at the most impactful links that we can bring together, show to the national governments that these are the projects that we want the countries on either side, for example, Kenya, Uganda, to work on that so that the integration can happen, and Cote d'Ivoire and Burkina Faso to work on that. The high speed is really a misnomer. It is not only passenger, it is also freight. Remember, Africa's interconnectivity or internal trade connections is lacking, and you can see that the trading between African countries is anywhere from 12 to 15%. Now, this high speed will reinforce that to even 22% or even 50%, as some will quote. So I think we have a great opportunity to work on these missing links. I mean, Nairobi to Kampala is a missing link by definition. It's not yet there in terms of rail. You already have Mombasa to Nairobi, which is a link. So you need to extend it so that you begin to fit the puzzle and get Africa to communicate and to trade amongst itself, so that we can boost the economic capacity and consumption capacity that we have in Africa to trade amongst ourselves and also to trade with the rest of the world. And these 6 links will start the journey for that to happen. The African Union will come to bring partners, multilateral partners here, to support the effort of member states. And remember, and we appreciate the fact that member states are doing it even without the African Union. I mean, the work that Kenya has done with the SGR, what Tanzania is doing with the SGR, is not because of the AU, but it is because countries have this foresight to bring integration, and we are coming to join hands with them and give them that push so that they can cross the border and interconnect other countries, especially those 16 African landlocked countries that so badly needs to be connected to ports and to production sites. Yes, basically when we look at Africa, Africa is divided into a network. And this network of routes or corridors is further, as we say, decomposed into 74 links. Now these 74 links have been reduced to 6 most viable ones. So now we have this map of Africa, which is into 6 regions. A region like the eastern region, we have the Mombasa-Nairobi-Kampala as one of the links. The high speed is really a misnomer. It is not only passenger, it is also freight. Remember, Africa's interconnectivity or internal trade connections is lacking, and you can see that the trading between African countries is anywhere from 12 to 15%. Now, this high speed will reinforce that to even 22% or even 50%, as some will quote. So I think we have a great opportunity to work on these missing links. I mean, Nairobi to Kampala is a missing link by definition. It's not yet there in terms of rail. You already have Mombasa to Nairobi, which is a link. So you need to extend it so that you begin to fit the puzzle and get Africa to communicate and to trade amongst itself, so that we can boost the economic capacity and consumption capacity that we have in Africa to trade amongst ourselves and also to trade with the rest of the world.
NEPAD's mandate is more than funding, but funding is a key element in NEPAD's mandate, in the execution of its mandate. Now, this project comes at a very important time when Africa is undergoing great economic, political, and social transformation. For a long time, Africa has been exporting raw materials. And these raw materials, over time, have been losing value. The price for raw materials, if you look at what it was in the 60s and now, it has come down. What does it mean? It means that Africa must be able to process these raw materials into finished products to be competitive with the rest of the world. If you are doing an investment of this sort, what are you doing? You are saying you are making it cheaper to export Africa's products to other parts of the world. And in the long run, it pays to put money in this kind of infrastructure, because if you don't have that infrastructure, your products will be very expensive and you will not be able to sell or compete with the rest of the world, and in the end you will remain behind forever. But here you are, we will look for resources. Indeed, there are substantial resources within Africa. It's only that we need to mobilize that resource. For example, look at the pension funds. All over the continent, we have pension funds which have been established, but which have not been channeled to productive investment. So if these are harnessed and put into this kind of investments, for sure, in a little time to come, they will be able to pay everyone. It will be a win-win for everyone.
It's very important that you have these relationships and an understanding of what it is that the infrastructure will deliver to the continent. So this is why the project was divided up into sub-regions to look at synergies around there. The project was actually born out of PIDA, which was a program for infrastructure development in Africa. There was a lot of examination that was done in terms of looking at what road infrastructure is there, the corridors, rail, ports, etc., so that we can actually promote intra-Africa trade. Because trade outside Africa is one thing, but there is no trade that's feasibly happening within the region. And this is why this project is very, very important. The railway infrastructure, by its own very nature, is actually very capital intensive. Not only just the capital to put on the ground, but also sustaining capital. So what you do need there is you need a viability model that says there's actually enough cargo to move that actually pays for the infrastructure. So now, structuring of funds really does not have to come from China. It comes from a study which says if we move so much volumes, we can actually pay for the infrastructure. So we need a good mix of these funding structures. And we also need to understand infrastructure like railway, because it's long-term, we need long-term funders to come on board. So you will have a mixture of those funding institutions coming on board. We actually have them now. What we did was we started off with African Development Bank and we invited other institutions and other DFIs to come on board. For instance, in South Africa, DBSA is part of the discussions as we speak now. The last meeting that we had on PIDA, for instance, in Walvis Bay, they were there to understand where we are and to help us to mobilize the funds. We'd like to utilize money of a local nature as well. The pension funds that are existing in countries, because those are pensions monies. So if they go into long-term infrastructure, they actually promote the country and make us stronger. So we will be looking at a mixture of funding. We need a political will, we need synergies. We need each head of state to understand it's not a country's project. It will not work if you feel like it's a country's project. It will only work if you understand the bigger picture and see the regional growth and what it will bring to the people of each of the countries. Because we're not only looking at just the infrastructure, we're looking at skills development, looking at job creation, we're looking at youth development, manufacturing. So those are the other sectors, the spin-offs that we're looking at.